All right, so subtracting integers. First kind of problem you're going to come across is when you see something like this. This is saying, you know, I have $4 and I'm going to spend 20. Like a credit card is used, and you can actually, with a credit card, you can spend more money than you have, but then you owe money. So a problem like this, if I was going to represent it on a number line, might look something like this. So I'm at, you know, I see 0, and then maybe 4 is right here. I'm subtracting 20 means I'm taking away more than I have. When you subtract, which way are you going to move on a number line? To the right or to the left? To the left. Yeah, you're going to move to the left. So I'm going 20. So it's only 4 to 0. So I'm going to go past 0 if I'm subtracting 20, right? So my answer has to be negative. It has to be a negative number because I'm taking away more than I have. So in this case, what I can do is 20 minus 4 is 16. But my answer has to be a negative 16 because I went further than where I started, right? Started at 4 and I took away 20, so I spent there, and I would end up at negative 16. So anytime you see I'm taking away more than I started with, your answer is going to be negative. Your answer will be negative if I'm taking away more than what I started with. Now getting into the different kind of problem. Maybe I have something like negative 3 minus 7. Okay, again, on a number line, starting at negative 3, if I take away 7, which direction am I going to move? To the left. So I'm actually going to go this way. I'm getting further from 0 because 0 would be over here. I'm taking away 7. Thinking about it with the number line in your head always is a good thing to do because that's going to tell me my answer is going to be positive or negative here. It's going to be negative because I'm going further away. One trick that I really like, it helps me because I think adding is easier than subtracting. Okay, adding is just combining things together. So one thing that maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know, subtraction signs and negative signs are the exact same thing. They're the same thing. So I'm going to circle these. So I have a negative 3 and a negative 7. And what I'm going to do with those, I'm going to add them together. Adding negative 7 is the same thing as subtracting 7. Adding negative 7 is the same thing as subtracting 7. This kind of helps me to remember, oh, negative 3 and negative 7, well, that's going to be negative 10. Let's try another one similar to this. Let's say negative 23 minus 9. So here I could say, okay, I could still think of it like this with the number line, and that's great. It really is, because then you wouldn't have to do these other things, but these are tricks to help you if you're getting stuck, you're not fully understanding. If this is 0, if I'm going to subtract 9, that's the same thing, right? I have to go to the left because I'm taking away, but that would be just like adding a negative 9. I can say I got a negative 9 and a negative 23, and I'm adding them together. Is there questions so far with what we're doing? So subtracting 9 and adding a negative 9 are the same thing. It's called, actually the rule is called additive inverse. It means subtracting something and adding its opposite are the same thing. So negative 23 plus a negative 9 is going to get me to a negative 32. If you had something that was, maybe a little bit more complex, like negative 53 minus 522 minus 19 minus 3. Right? I get a lot of these numbers, and sometimes they're not all just going to be just subtraction. You might have some addition, some subtraction. I could, again, group these. So I have a negative 53, a negative 522, a negative 19, and a negative 3. And then I'm simply going to add each one of them together. So negative 53 plus a negative 522, I'm going to add them up and I'm going further negative. I'm going further negative. I'm going further negative. So that's going to be negative 575 plus negative 19. So where we're at, 4 carry 8, 9, negative 594, negative 597. Questions with how we did this one? So I can change a subtraction problem into an addition problem. All right, and I'm not just changing it, I'm keeping the problem the same. You can close the door if you want. Subtracting 9 is the exact same. It's the equivalent to adding a negative 9. It's the same thing. One other type of problem I want to show you, all right? And this is the one where it gets, I think, a little bit tricky, is when I have something like negative 3 minus a negative 7. So I like to think of, I think I told you guys before, bad guys are negative numbers, good guys are positive numbers. So it's like there's a negative vibe in the city right now, okay? Because there's a lot of bad guys. Well then, superhero comes in, call him Math Man, right? Math Man. So Math Man comes in and he takes out 7 bad guys. Well, if I'm taking out bad guys, do you think that's going to move the city in a negative direction if I'm taking out bad guys, or a positive direction? Positive. So when I take out the negative, that is going to make it move in the positive direction. So that becomes negative 3 plus 7. Then you have an addition problem, which you already know how to solve, right? 3 negatives and 1, 2, 6, 7 positives. So that part's going to be 0, leaving us with 4. 3 negatives, 7 positives. When I take away the negatives, I'm left with the positives. Let's try 2 more. We'll do one just like this, and then I'll see if I can push you guys and challenge it. Let's go negative 15 minus negative 8. So again, I can do the exact same thing as I was doing before with circling and grouping them. I can say, okay, I have a negative 15, and then I have minus a negative 8. Now, I have 2 negative signs here, so I'm taking out the bad guys, which is going to move the city in a positive direction. Moving the city towards the positive. Math Man is cleaning up the streets. So that's going to become negative 15 plus 8. thinking about that on a number line, negative 15. I'm taking away 8 of the negatives. Means I'm moving in the positive direction. 8 is going to land me at negative 7. Alright, so I'm going to give you one more that's going to be a little bit challenging, but before I do that, does anybody have any questions? Alright. Alright, so you come across a problem like this. We have negative 3 minus a negative 19 minus the absolute value of negative 5 minus 14 minus 23. Organization for a problem like this is your best friend. Organized is key. I kind of like circling them just to get everything together. So I have negative 3 minus the negative 19 minus the absolute value of negative 5 minus 14 minus 23. So first thing I want to mess with is this absolute value because I want to get rid of it. The absolute value of negative 5 would be 5. So this part's going to be 5, but you have to recognize that I'm still bringing down this negative sign. And then I can add all my addition signs in between everything. So it becomes 3. Well, minus the negative 19, what am I going to do with that? It's going to add together, right? Because I'm cleaning up the streets. Minus a negative is moving it in a positive direction. Negative 3 plus 19 plus a negative 5 plus a negative 14 plus a negative 23. Negative 3 plus 19. Let me out. Where are we at? 16. Plus negative 5. 11, because adding a negative 5 would be the same thing as subtracting 5. 11 plus a negative 14. Negative 3, that is 11 minus 14 is the same thing as adding a negative 14. And then negative 3 plus a negative 23. Negative 26. I owe someone $3 and then they add $23 more to my bill because I take too long. Right? There's 3 bad guys and then 23 more bad guys walk into the room. It's 26 bad guys.